Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, or whatever time zone it is, wherever you in the world. It is your Lord and Saviour, and today I would think I'd answer a question that I feel some of you may be wondering, and I feel that somebody asked me once many a moon ago when I was starting out the Lore by Night YouTube channel, what vampire clan would I be? And of course, by vampire clan, I'm talking about the clans of Vampire the Masquerade, and if you've got no idea what I'm talking about, go and watch my other Vampire the Masquerade videos and get caught up to speed. Now, it's no secret that my favourite clan of all time is the clan Nosferatu. It's the clan that I've personified in my Lore by Night Vampire the Masquerade lore dives. Got a bit of a tickle of the throat there, like my throat is trying to prevent me from unleashing my inner Nosferatu. But it made sense with what I was doing with the lore dives, etc. and so forth. But that doesn't necessarily translate to the individual that your Lore and Saviour is and what they've become since we started out doing YouTube. And I thought it'd be fun to try and explore the main 7-ish clans, probably a bit more, I suppose, which I would be, which clan would embrace your Lore and Saviour to join their flock, as it were. Now, I feel this is quite a nuanced question because I think that each of the clans has got a different reason for embracing anybody, really, rather than just focusing on one or two traits, which is something that all the fiction tends to rely on a bit too much, because, all those stereotypes and whatnot. Of course, stereotypes work for a reason, but I'm going to try and explore all of them in an attempt to answer this question some way or another. So let us start with the Bruja. One of my least favourite of the clans. They're activists, they're very political, which I think would meet very well with the sort of person that I am. Most of which, or at least how they're presented in the fiction, are implied to be left-leaning, anarchists. You tend to find a lot of left-leaning people to be in that sort of political field. But I'm not the sort of person that will be on the front lines of riots and protests and those sorts of things. I'm far more of a useful keyboard warrior, which isn't to say that if the time was right I would take up the stand, but it would have to be something pretty considered to put myself and my immune-compromised family in rather unique bits of ill-related dangers. I'm not particularly the fastest person in the world, so celerity wouldn't do me that good. And as a content creator and somebody who usually assumes the leadership role in a crisis, I think presence would do wonders here. Potence, I don't know. I don't feel that I'm particularly strong, but I've had family members and a couple of friends notice that I'm a bit stronger than they expect. But I'm not going to toot my hoot over it because I think they're just being nice and therefore don't fucking buy it. The Gangrel, I think, is probably one of the least likely of the clans to embrace your Lore and Saviour because I don't really like going outside much. I like little nature walks like this and just embracing nature on my own terms. And I don't think the Gangrel's wilderness sort of approach to things would have really worked very well. But of course, some of the gangrels in writing do tend to be like the wolf in sheep's clothing in the office in more city-based surroundings, which I think is a very interesting thing indeed. But I think a gangrel might approach me to be like a protector of animals because I do tend to put the lives of animals in front of other people. I tend to love animals a lot more than people as well for that very reason, which is probably why I love your mother as much as I do. The Hakata make up of various necromantic clans and bloodlines. We're going to get rid of the Giovanni because I'm not of the family. I'm not Italian, and nor do I believe that incest is wincest, so that one's out of the question. I don't think I'd make a particularly good Samedi because I think we all know why. You can go and do a bit of research to find out why. Nagaraja would be interesting because I'm not particularly keen on eating flesh, and some might think it would be particularly funny if I take that approach to life. Which kind of leads us down to the Cappadocians and the Harbingers of Skulls, because we're obviously going to be ignoring the Lamia for a very specific reason. Well, they do embrace men, but it's kind of low on the bar, so I don't think the Lamia would ever consider me to be part of their flock too much. I could be mistaken. I'd love to hear why you would think a Lamia would embrace your Lord and Saviour. So that leaves the Harbingers of Skulls and the Cappadocians, which I would be happy with, being a goth and all that. I think any of them can have a bit of fun with your Lord and Saviour here. I'm a little prideful in my opinion. Not too much, I'm not like a fucking diva or anything, but I think over time I would get a bit annoyed about looking more like the corpse and all that fun stuff. Which sort of leads us on to the Nosferatu, really, because again, I like my hair, I like my beard, and I don't particularly want to get rid of it all, to be honest, and I don't think I would know all too much to be warrant useful, like information broke and whatnot. That being said, I do know a bit of spicy information regarding some well-known TTRPG creators, but those aren't my stories to tell at this time. I'm also not the greatest person with computers, honestly, and being somewhat of a content creator, I don't think a Nosferatu would want literally the inverse of their persona, you know, like being out in the public eye sort of thing. Although, I think some might have a bit of fun, like fucking about with me, I suppose. You know, because as a content creator, I tend to fuck myself over on more than one occasion. And in my attempt to do things alphabetically, I completely forgot about the Banu Hakim and the Assamites. Probably because I'd already shut off in my mind that I don't think any of them would see any good in me at all. Really? Perhaps, unless it was a rare accidental thing, but I'm not much of a fighter. Yeah, I can be a little stealthy and sneaky, but there's a little difference between like being able to sneak up on family members and finding out bits and pieces online and being a fucking assassin. Like, we're just going to remove that one altogether. Likewise, I think we'll completely ignore the followers of Set or the Ministry if we use the V5 iteration. I mean, we do joke about being a cult here on Lore by Night, but I have the awareness to understand that every content creator and personality online is their own personal cult leader. So you, if you enjoy my stuff, you're already indoctrinated into the Church of Lore. And we joke a little bit on the Lore by Night Discord server that really, we are just a front for the Church of Nithris. So take that what you will. If we take the more Egyptian-themed variant of the followers of Set, i.e. the version of the followers of Set, the Setites that have been around since the very beginning of Vampire the Masquerade, at least from the first edition player's guide. I ain't Egyptian, I don't really revere Set all that much. For own personal experiences, I wouldn't particularly do much with drugs and alcohol and sex trade, but each to their own, I suppose. Next are the Malkavians, and in order to approach this, we're going to have to be a little bit risque, shall I say, because we've got to swerve and tiptoe ourselves around some particularly dodgy waters, because if we take a look at any Malkavian across any of the Vampire the Masquerade books, their sires or the character themselves have a bit of a fetish going on for some form of mental illness that makes them a deranged nutter or just the worst case scenario of said mental illness, both from literal worst case scenarios in the mental department or like all the worst stereotypes rolled up into one. So attempting to answer that question, how and why a Malkavian would embrace your Lord and Saviour, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm autistic, which would definitely count in that sort of thing, and you could argue that some Malkavian sires would want to bring those to light more, see like a morbid beauty behind that sort of thing, which I obviously don't, but I'm just trying to think about how I would be written into a Vampire the Masquerade sourcebook as a Malkavian. But of course there's a lot more to the Malkavians than that, of course. The Malkavians with their culture keep to themselves, they have a strong sense of family and community, which I definitely do, but we're also big fat fucking loners, so that one definitely resonates with me as well, I think. Who is next? We've got the Toreador clan. Again, persona, like fucking content creator. I'm a musician, I'm a producer, I'm a somewhat of a polymath, I write, I have all these different skill sets. But it's mainly my love of music and video games that would definitely give any fucking Toreador a throbbing hard one. I'm just like the next case wanting to break free and become a sensation before they get fucking bored of me and move on to the next thing, which sort of sums up most of my fucking relationships in life, to be honest, and as sad as that is, it's very fitting of the Toreador way. Clan Tremere, magic and shit, as much as I love magic users and this, that and the other, and, well, my reasoning for rules, I already live in a particularly restrictive household, and I wouldn't particularly want to be in the Tremere environment, and I don't know what sort of occult knowledge I would pick up that would make me useful for the Tremere. But then again, not all Tremere are masters with thaumaturgy, so we'll just have to see what would happen in that particular scenario. And on the content creator side of things, just to go back a little bit, I think some Venture would probably see an interesting market for that, I suppose. But given who and what I am, I don't think the Venture would really be all that interested in me. Maybe they could see me as a potential just to mould them into their image, but I think I would just be too much fucking effort personally. I could be mistaken, because of course the Venture will break all sorts of different moulds, and some of my most favourite characters in the fiction just so happen to be Venture, which is a very interesting scenario, I suppose. And also something I've mentioned once or twice on the channel, and those who know me well know that I have many food allergies and intolerances, and just other allergies and intolerances to other things in life in general, which sort of makes me prime venture material. Although, that being said, eventually have like that fucking eating disorder sort of thing, for lack of a better phrase. And I'd have no idea what sort of person or type of individual that I would end up having to feed upon for the rest of my life, but I'm also autistic, so I'm quite happy at eating the same thing over and over again. And my attempts to recover doing things alphabetically have gone down the shitter again because I've forgotten the two edgy clans, the Lore Saviour and the Tzimisce. Well, let us start with the Lore Saviour first, because I think a lot of people are going to be having a throbbing hard one for that one. I mean, I don't like humanity all that much. I think we're sort of a lost cause at this point. Some would describe some of my viewpoints as nihilistic. But would I want to sacrifice all of that for, like, embracing the darkness? Yes, I mean, yes, kind of, because I think after a time I would want to see my fucking reflection again. And whilst I'm a huge fan of all that edgy dark shit and love the darkness, both the literal darkness and the video game, the first one, wasn't too fond of the comics, unfortunately. I don't think I have the ruthlessness to be a Lore Saviour. I mean, again, over time, maybe, but again, we're just talking about if I was embraced tonight by a Lore Saviour, would I make the cut? I don't think so, honestly. And I think for similar reasons, I wouldn't really get on with the Tzimisce, because as much as the Tzimisce is probably the most trans rights of human rights as they are, you have to keep in consideration just how the Tzimisce were presented in the older fiction. Didn't really have the best rep at all, and whilst it's fantastic that the trans and non-binary communities now have sort of claimed them as their particular clan, there is sort of a dodgy subculture treating of that I think we should be a bit wary of, that sort of trivialises things a little bit. And I know I talked a lot about the representation of trans people with the Tzimisce in my How to Roleplay the Tzimisce, but it's just something to be aware of, I think. So with that potential minefield open up, let's quickly move over to the final two 5th edition clans, and I do that because technically one's a bloodline, and depending on which edition of Vampire the Masquerade you're looking at, this is either a clan or a bloodline. So let's have a look at the Ravnos. I would love to wander around and explore with no real sense of purpose and just taking the sights around me. But alas, time, money, and all the rest of that fun stuff makes it a bit difficult. I do believe that at times I can be somewhat of a charlatan, but if we look at some of the older materials, I am neither Indian nor Roma. So that might be a little bit difficult as well. But of course the Ravnos don't entirely exist at those particular groups of people, and with 5th edition I'm not a graffiti artist either, so I can't fit into that one either. And I can't drive either, so I'm just doing a lot of walking. I can't ride a bike either, so again, lots of walking. Which leaves us the Salubri, and depending on which edition of Vampire the Masquerade you're looking at, this is either going to be a really unfortunate thing or an exceptionally unfortunate thing, because the Salubri seeking Golconda thing have been exceptionally charitable. I mean, I've donated to charity every so often, but I don't think I have that in me to do that all the time, honestly. And I don't think I'm angry or vengeful enough to take up the Warrior cast, and I'm not Asian, so I can't really exist within the Watcher cast or the Mao Zhao or something like that. I've completely forgotten the actual word naming here. And then you have the 5th edition variant. So we've gone through all the different clans and some minor bloodlines that make up some other clans in Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition, treating them with all aspects of the lore, particularly that with the older stuff, because there's a lot more to work with, admittedly. And 5th edition does use a lot of the older stuff as well, whilst adding the newer bits. But what clan do I think is most likely to embrace your Lore and Saviour? Well, if I'm being totally honest, I think it's a neck and neck tie between the Toreador and the Malkavians. With the Toreador, I think, getting the edge just because of all the different talents that I have, my love of music and the arts, video games, somewhat of a content creator, you know, I think they would find a lot of fun with that before they move on to the next thing, I suppose. So yeah, that's kind of what I think about all that, to be honest. But do you agree with my takes? I would be very interested to know what clan in Vampire the Masquerade would embrace your Lore and Saviour based on what you know about your Lore and Saviour. And I'd also love to know what clan you think would embrace you for your traits, good and bad and indifferent. Not just picking your favourite clan, because That's just fucking easy to do, isn't it? Now, I did mention at the beginning of this video that this may be your very first introduction to Vampire the Masquerade, and if that's the case, I'm going to be really generous and leave a handful of Vampire the Masquerade books for you to go and explore, so you can play this amazing TTRPG with friends, but you can also play it by yourself with some amazing homebrew things that I have made for you that provide you to play Vampire the Masquerade by yourself. Now, if you purchase those books or those specific links, I get some of the money back because I'm an affiliate on Drive4RPG, and that allows me to provide awesome content like this, and because it gives me a little bit of money back in return, which is fantastic because you get books, I get books, and you get free content, which is absolutely amazing. But what if you've got those books already? Well, you can copy and paste the magical affiliate code in the description and post it in the URL of any Drive4RPG book before you add it to the cart, and that helps to support the channel financially as well. But if you can't do that, that's absolutely fine, because I know times are hard on all of us, and it's just going to get even harder. But if you can't, that's fine. If you can, that's also fine. But what you should definitely do regardless is give the video a cheeky little thumbs up, subscribe to the Lore by Night channel, and share this video with any and everyone who loves what I do, and I'll see you on the next upload, whatever that may well be for you. And until next time, farewell.